You remember your first day of school. You remember a birthday, a scraped knee, maybe a song your mother sang, but you don't remember learning to walk. You don't remember the first time you said mom. You don't remember almost anything before the age of 3. And that gap isn't a flaw in your brain. It's a feature. Something happened in your head that erased an entire person you used to be. Here's the strange part. That person was recording everything. Your infant brain wasn't blank. It was working overtime. Newborns can recognize their mother's voice within hours of birth. Babies form memories constantly, testing the world, updating expectations every single day. So the memories were made. The question is where they went. For most of the 20th century, one man's answer dominated the conversation. Sigmund Freud called this gap infantile amnesia back in 1905, and he had a theory that sounds almost like a horror story. He believed you don't forget your earliest years. You repress them. He argued the mind buries early experiences, especially anything tied to shame or desire, locking them away where conscious thought can't reach. It's a compelling story. It's also, according to most modern researchers, wrong. The real explanation is stranger and far more physical. Your brain, in your first years of life, was still being built, literally under construction. The hippocampus, the region responsible for stitching moments into long-term memory, is one of the last structures to mature. Not fully wired. Not fully wired until sometime in early childhood. Think about that for a second. You didn't lose your first memories because they were too painful. You lost them because the part of your brain that files memories away hadn't finished growing the shelves. So how do we know this? Because scientists actually tested it on the smallest research subjects imaginable. Psychologist Carolyn Rovey Collier ran a series of experiments starting in the 1980s using a method that sounds almost too simple to work. She tied a ribbon from a baby's ankle to a mobile hanging overhead. Kick your leg, the mobile moves. Babies as young as 3 months learn this instantly. They kicked, they watched, they kicked again. Here's the twist. Weeks later, without the ribbon attached, babies who saw that same mobile again started kicking, as if the memory had never left. The memory existed. It could be triggered. It just couldn't survive long term, not yet, not in a form the child could later carry into adulthood as a story about themselves. That's the key distinction almost nobody makes. There are different kinds of memory, and only one of them requires the hippocampus to be fully online. Procedural memory, how to move your body, how to suck a bottle, how to recognize a face, comes online almost immediately. Emotional memory, that vague sense of safety or fear tied to a place, arrives early too, but autobiographical memory, the kind where you can mentally travel back and say, I was there, this happened to me, requires something else entirely. It requires language. It requires a sense of self as a continuous character moving through time, and that self doesn't fully exist yet in a 2-year-old. Developmental psychologist Patricia Bauer has spent decades mapping exactly when this ability switches on, and her research suggests it isn't one clean line. It's a slow fade-in. Starting somewhere between ages 2 and 4, strengthening through early childhood, not finished until nearly age 7. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If the hardware wasn't ready, were any of your earliest memories real? Probably not. Most of them. Ask an adult for their first memory, and researcher Nora Newcomb found something unsettling. Many people confidently describe events from before age 2, sometimes before age 1. Events their own hippocampus couldn't have possibly stored. So where did those memories come from? They were built. Not lied about, not invented on purpose, but constructed quietly, over years, out of photographs you've seen, stories your parents told at dinner, a home video watched one too many times. Your brain took the pieces and stitched them into something that feels like a memory because remembering and imagining use almost the same neural circuitry. You didn't recall your first birthday, you reconstructed it. This is where the story stops being about babies and starts being about you right now, because your brain never actually stopped doing this. Every time you retell a story from last year, you're not replaying a recording. You're reconstructing it again, slightly differently each time, shaped by your current mood, your current beliefs, the person you've become since. Memory was never a filing cabinet. It was always closer to storytelling, editing itself with every retelling, that reframes something most people never question. The version of your childhood you carry around isn't a preserved artifact. It's the latest draft. And maybe that's not a loss. Maybe it's the opposite. If your earliest self couldn't hold on to memories because the self hadn't finished forming, then in a strange way you have been becoming a person in real time since before you could even remember becoming one. The blank years weren't empty. They were the construction phase for the exact mind now reading these words, deciding what to believe about who you were, and quietly rewriting it as you go. You still don't remember being a baby, but maybe that's because, back then, there was no you yet to remember it.